Today, you can get from an idea to a billion-dollar company in less time than ever. Take Snapchat. A quarter of Snapchat users are between 13 and 17 years old. So maybe I should have someone younger explain it.
So Snapchat is an app where you have like a list of friends. It could be people that you know or that you don't know. And you can send them any sort of picture of yourself or what you're doing. And you can pick the amount of time that it's for, and it's up to 10 seconds. And once the person opens it, it erases completely, and so you can't get it again.
Snapchat was just an idea in 2011. Only 3 years later, Snapchat had a valuation of $10 billion. And everything we see tells us that the time to create this billion-dollar valuation will continue to shorten. As a result, you have the opportunity to dramatically change your industry, or you could be steamrolled by unexpected change. I want to give you a framework to grapple with how exponential change impacts our world. It's called the 6 Ds of exponentials and was developed by SU's co-founder Peter Diamandis. Here's an example of how it works. In 1975, a man who worked for Kodak invented the digital camera. Now, this is the same Kodak which just got killed by the digital camera, but we'll get to that part of the story later. What's remarkable about this camera, beside the fact that it truly looks bizarre, is that it saves the images on a cassette tape. The resolution was 0.01 megapixels, which, if you know anything about digital photography, is truly, truly bad. By inventing the digital camera, photography entered into the first phase of the 6 Ds of exponentials: digitization. Now, amazing things happen when a product or a service is digitized, which essentially means it can be turned into computer code. It has essentially become information technology and is subject to Ray Kurzweil's law of accelerating returns. The product starts its journey on the exponential curve, and we can expect performance to improve while price drops. This brings us to the second D, deception. These trends start out being deceptive in that they are really, really slow when they start out, which means exponential growth is hard to spot. Doubling of small numbers, 0.01 to 0.02 to 0.04, still looks awfully close to zero. Let's go back to our Kodak example. The inventor goes back to his executive team and says, "I've got this amazing thing. We can take pictures and turn them into digitals. You don't need to put them on film anymore." But remember, the first digital camera had 0.01 megapixels, which is horrible. So people say, "Dude, this is just not good enough. Film will always be better." Because the digital camera is subject to the law of accelerating returns, the year after it was developed, it already had 0.02 megapixels. The next year, 0.04, then 0.08, by which time Kodak says, "This is still really bad. We have to go and kill this project." However, Kodak failed to realize that after you reach 1 megapixels, there are only 29 doublings after that to get to 1 billion. Therefore, at a certain point in the development of an exponentially advancing area, the growth rate begins to startle us. It passes through the knee of the curve of an exponential growth chart. Now these trends become disruptive, which brings us to the third D, disruption. The digital camera became disruptive when it hit 2 megapixels. I very distinctly remember the time I bought my first camera with 2 megapixels. The resolution was good enough to print a 4:6 photo. However, by the time Kodak realized the power of the digital camera, it was too late. They didn't catch up with the technology, and they eventually filed for bankruptcy. Some other examples of disruption? Think about what Craigslist did to newspaper classified ads and how Netflix and Hulu kicked Blockbuster to the curb. Newspaper and video rental stores were disrupted by products that had essentially been dematerialized, which is our fourth D. When a service or product gets digitized, it usually exists in a software environment. It can be easily transferred device to device, and it essentially dematerializes. Smartphones allowed us to dematerialize video conferencing, radios, CD players, flashlights, paper scanners, music players, computer notepads, and many other things. Physical things like GPS systems that sat in our car or flashlights are now just apps made out of lines of codes on your phone. What was once a $500 Canon ELPH camera, which I bought, now becomes a little thing which is part of my cell phone. I don't even buy a camera anymore. Peter Diamandis calculated that the average cell phone holds over $1 million worth of technologies from the 1980s. So, if you're not already, you need to start thinking about how you can dematerialize your product or service before someone else does. Once technology becomes digitized and becomes dematerialized, you suck the money out of the system. So you demonetize it, our fifth D. And the products and services are either free or much cheaper than they were. Skype essentially demonetized long-distance phone calls. And good old email has demonetized sending letters. Once this occurs, the product starts democratizing, the sixth and our final D. When something is available as software, many more people can access it. Currently, 40% of the world's population has access to the internet. All of these individuals are now empowered to begin solving global problems and become entrepreneurs.
One of the things that we teach here at Singularity University is that an individual now has tremendous capability, more than governments or largest corporations 20 years ago. You can take on a moonshot. You can say, I'm sick and tired that this problem exists and I'm going to solve it. There is nothing that can hold you back. There's more access to capital today than any time ever in human history in terms of venture capital, crowdfunding. You want access to knowledge? You can get it on Google. You want access to expertise in quantum physics or genetic engineering? You can get it on crowdsourcing. You want access to computational power? You can spin up core processors on Amazon web servers, 3D printing. We're living in a hyper-connected world where an individual now has tremendous capabilities.
By 2020, the cell phone company Ericsson predicted that 70% of humanity will be using smartphones. That means that most individuals will have access to thousands upon thousands of apps that have dematerialized a myriad of services and products. Imagine billions of new customers you can reach, people who will be consuming, creating, and, make no mistake, competing with you in this new, rapidly changing global market. So start thinking about how you leverage these new opportunities. And consider our 6 Ds: digitization, deception, disruption, dematerialization, demonetization, and democratization.